The WNBA's biggest names are finally speaking out, and fans are more divided than ever. Sue Bird sat on a podcast, nodding along as a host suggested Caitlin Clark's fans are there for a weird reason, and that their love is actually hate being disguised. Evert, the tennis legend, fired back that Clark is the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball, and called the league's treatment of her a bad look. Now the debate has exploded. Icons against icons, fans against fans, and the question at the center of it all is the WNBA embracing Caitlin Clark or using her.
You don't know when to use your voice. You don't know when to listen to your vets. You don't know the best way to handle a lot of those situations. So I think just learning and growing through that, I think just being a really good leader is my main goal. And obviously I want to play good basketball, but I think winning is...
Sue Bird has been a legend in the WNBA for 2 decades. 5 Olympic gold medals, 13 All-Star appearances, 4 championships, the winningest player in league history. When she speaks, people listen. But when she recently appeared on the Casuals podcast with host Katie Nolan, the conversation took a turn that has Clark's fan base seeing red. Let me read you what Nolan said, the comments that have sparked a firestorm. I feel like we had one of those particular growing pains where some of the people that are coming in and watching the sport and are fans of the sport, I feel like maybe they're there for a weird reason, Nolan said. And now they've found maybe one player to hyper-fixate on that they feel stands at odds with what a WNBA player is in their minds, and they passionately love that player in a way that actually just feels like hate being disguised. The implication was clear. Caitlin Clark's fans aren't real fans. They're there for a weird reason. Their love is hate being disguised. And Bird? She sat there, smiling, nodding, chuckling along. She didn't disagree, she didn't push back, she didn't defend the millions of new fans who have discovered women's basketball because of Caitlin Clark. The backlash was immediate. Sue Bird is a double agent, one fan wrote on X. Sick of you MFers thinking CC fans chose women's basketball of all things to pretend to like. I have never been more angry, bro, another posted. Sue Bird should be ashamed for having a podcast with the same old tired talking points, a third said. But Bird wasn't the only icon weighing in. Across the sports world, another legend was watching the controversy unfold, and her take was completely different. Tennis icon Evert had something to say about Caitlin Clark, and her words are making the WNBA front office very uncomfortable.
While Sue Bird was nodding along to Katie Nolan's controversial podcast, another sports icon was watching from afar, and she had a completely different take. Evert, the 18-time Grand Slam tennis champion, a woman who knows something about carrying a sport on her shoulders, took to social media with a message that cut through all the noise. When will these ladies realize, accept, and appreciate Caitlin Clark 22 is the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball, Evert wrote. This is a bad look for the sport, and what's happened to sportsmanship? The timing was everything. Evert wasn't responding to a hypothetical debate. She was reacting to the June 2025 game where J.C. Sheldon poked Caitlin Clark in the eye, Marina Mabrey shoved her to the ground, and the officials let Mabrey stay in the game. The WNBA continues to fail to meet the moment, columnist Christine Brennan had written. Terrible decision to allow Marina Mabrey to stay in the game. People are watching as never before, and this is what they see? Evert agreed, and then went further. She didn't just criticize the officiating, she called out the players, the league, the culture. And her message was simple: appreciate Caitlin Clark. Not because she's perfect, because she's the reason women's basketball is having this moment at all. This is a bad look for the sport, and what's happened to sportsmanship? Evert asked. The question was rhetorical, but the implication was clear. The WNBA has a generational talent, the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball. And instead of embracing her, the league is letting her get bullied and letting its legends nod along while fans are dismissed as there for a weird reason. Everett's words hit differently because she's not a WNBA insider. She's not protecting friendships or league politics. She's a competitor who sees greatness and calls it what it is. And she sees Caitlin Clark for what she is, the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball.
The Bird podcast and the Evert response have created a civil war among WNBA fans. Two sides, two narratives, and no middle ground. Let me show you what people are saying. Side one, the Clark defenders. These fans are furious at Sue Bird. They feel betrayed by a legend who should be welcoming new fans, not dismissing them. One fan wrote, "Sue Bird sat there and let someone call Clark's fans there for a weird reason. She nodded. She chuckled. She didn't say a word. That's not leadership. That's gatekeeping." Another posted, "I never watched women's basketball before Caitlin Clark. Now I watch every Fever game. I buy tickets. I buy jerseys. I tell my friends to watch. And Sue Bird thinks I'm there for a weird reason? That's insulting." And then there was this response, which cut to the heart of the issue. The WNBA wanted more fans. They got more fans. Now they're complaining about how those fans showed up. Make it sense. Side two, the Bird defenders. These fans argue that Bird wasn't talking about all Clark fans. She was talking about the toxic ones, the ones who use Clark to attack other players. The ones who turn every WNBA conversation into a Clark versus everyone else debate. One fan wrote, "Sue Bird has done more for women's basketball than Caitlin Clark ever will. She's earned the right to speak her mind, and she's not wrong. Some Clark fans are toxic. You know it, I know it, everyone knows it." Another posted, "The problem isn't Clark. The problem is fans who think they have to tear down every other player to lift her up. That's not love, that's hate, and that's what Sue was talking about." And then there were the fans caught in the middle. One wrote, "Both things can be true. Some Clark fans are toxic, and the WNBA has done a terrible job protecting her. Why is this so hard for people to understand?" The fan divide has become a chasm. Icons are choosing sides, fans are attacking each other, and the league is caught in the middle. The only person who hasn't spoken? Caitlin Clark. She's been silent through all of it, the podcast, the backlash, the debate, and that silence, it's driving everyone crazy.
The Sue Bird podcast controversy has exposed something ugly: gatekeeping. Let me explain what I mean. For decades, the WNBA was a niche league. Diehard fans loved it. Casual fans barely knew it existed. The community was small, tight-knit, and protective. Then, Caitlin Clark arrived. Millions of new fans discovered women's basketball. They filled arenas. They bought jerseys. They made the WNBA relevant in ways it had never been. But some old-school fans and former players resent this. They see the new fans as outsiders, as people who don't understand the game, as fans who are there for a weird reason. That's gatekeeping, and it's destroying the sport's growth. The WNBA has always wanted more attention, one media critic wrote, but now that the attention has arrived, they're complaining about who's paying attention. You can't have it both ways. Chris Evert's comments cut directly at this issue. When will these ladies realize, accept, and appreciate that Caitlin Clark is the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball? Not one of the best things, the best thing. Evert isn't a WNBA insider. She doesn't have friendships to protect. She doesn't have league politics to navigate. She's a competitor who sees greatness and calls it what it is, and she's calling out the gatekeepers. "This is a bad look for the sport," Evert said. She wasn't talking about the players who targeted Clark. She was talking about the culture that allows it, the silence that enables it, the gatekeeping that dismisses new fans as illegitimate. Sue Bird didn't create the gatekeeping problem. She's a legend, a pioneer, someone who fought for the league when nobody was watching. But her silence on the podcast, her nod, her chuckle, her failure to defend Clark's fans was a missed opportunity. "Sue Bird should know better," one fan wrote. "She should be welcoming new fans with open arms. Instead, she's nodding along while someone insults them. That's disappointing. The gatekeeping problem won't be solved overnight, but it starts with acknowledging it exists. And Chris Evert just shined a spotlight on it.
So where does this leave us? Sue Bird sat on a podcast and nodded along as the host suggested Caitlin Clark's fans are there for a weird reason and that their love is hate being disguised. Chris Evert fired back that Clark is the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball and called the league's treatment of her a bad look. Now, the WNBA's biggest icons are divided, fans are at war, and the league is caught in the middle. But the truth is more complicated than either side wants to admit. Both sides have a point. Sue Bird wasn't wrong that some Clark fans are toxic, the ones who attack other players, the ones who turn every conversation into a Clark versus everyone debate, the ones who use Clark as a weapon to tear down the very league she's trying to elevate. Those fans exist, and they are a problem. But Chris Evert wasn't wrong either. The WNBA has a generational talent, the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball. And instead of embracing her, the league has let her get bullied. The officiating has been inconsistent. The protection has been insufficient. The gatekeeping has been exhausting. When will these ladies realize, accept, and appreciate Caitlin Clark? Evert asked. That's the question the WNBA needs to answer. Not by dismissing new fans, not by ignoring toxic behavior, but by finding a middle ground, by welcoming the millions who showed up because of Clark, while also protecting the players and fans who've been here all along. This is a bad look for the sport, Evert said. She's right, and the only way to fix it is for everyone, legends, players, fans, and the league itself to do better. So what comes next? The season will start, Clark will play, the debates will continue, the gatekeeping won't disappear overnight, but maybe, just maybe, the conversation Evert started will lead to something better. A league that embraces its new fans without alienating its old ones. A sport that protects its stars without gatekeeping its growth. A community that can disagree without destroying itself. Caitlin Clark didn't ask for any of this. She just wanted to play basketball. The rest of us need to figure out how to let her. So here's what I need from you. If you made it to the end of this video, you just watched the WNBA's biggest icons go to war over Caitlin Clark. Sue Bird nodded along to criticism of Clark's fans. Chris Evert fired back that Clark is the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball. Now fans are divided, the debate is ugly, and the league is caught in the middle. But the truth is more complicated than either side wants to admit. Subscribe, hit that bell icon, because when the season starts and Clark steps on the court, you're going to want to be here to watch how this all plays out. The icons spoke, the fans are divided. Now the league has to figure out where it stands. I'll see you in the next one.